I really want to get into Alex's article now because this is an article released on Friday by the Gray Zone and Alex and Max, right? You guys both.
Yeah.
And this is specifically talking about how Ukrainian's Jewish president Zelensky made peace with neo-Nazi paramilitaries. And before you get into it, I just want to say one of the go-tos for the dismissing that there are actual neo-Nazis and paramilitaries that the US and NATO are funding is the fact that Zelensky is Jewish. And so because he's Jewish, there's no way that he would allow this contingent of neo-Nazis in the region. And that is entirely false for several reasons, and that I'm sure you're going to go into, but also the fact is that in particular, the Azov battalion and these particular factions are specifically anti-Russian and anti-Slavic, like anti-Romani. They're specifically focused on that, and they have no problem of talking about that. And also Zelensky does not have power. He isn't calling the shots. He's lost control essentially of his own country. So just take it away. Anything you want to like highlight about the article, the beginning, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd love to play the little compilation that I put together, but really quick, my apologies for stepping away. The sun was really beaming down on my face, and I looked whiter than some of these Nazis. So,
totally cool.
You know what? I may be whiter than some of these Nazis, anyways. But my family is actually from this area. My family's from Belarus, so not immediately, not in generations, but so you know
that. That's cool.
Being Eastern European Jewish, it's really sick to me to see Zelensky not only throw the Ukrainian people under his bus, but to ally with the very same forces that want to see him and his family wiped off the face of the earth, and all of his all his ancestors too. And it's interesting because this is one thing that we know in our article is that Zelensky has really downplayed his Jewishness up until now. He said it was like one of the least important things about him. But now he's very much touting this as a means of deflecting from allegations of Nazism. But it's really funny. Do you think that we could pull up the clip of the mainstream media that I put together?
Where is it?
It's down a bit.
Oh, it's in the article. Oh, this one's
it's in the body. No, that's Zelensky and Zolot. It's down a tiny bit more.
Oh, yes. We played this before. Yes.
I'm sorry.
No. You can if it's adds to the context of what we're going to talk about, we can.
Yeah, I'd like to just play it really quick because sure. I think it shows how this is being used. It's in the article, Oz. If you click in the article, let me see if I can just pull it in the slide deck real quick. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have prepped a little more.
No problem. If you want to keep talking, and I'll get it to him.
So, I mean, the mainstream media has really seized on this fact of Zelensky being Jewish. I put together a video of mainstream outlets, CNN, PBS, BBC, Fox, using this idea of Zelensky being Jewish as a means of dispelling this denazification thing. But there's also like a lot of print, or not print, but written articles, digital articles that address this issue directly in the headline. NPR is one that we cited, but there's many more. And it's just totally absurd because, as I show in my article, his government has been steered at times by neo-Nazis. So while like nobody is saying that Zelensky is a Nazi, of course not. That's the straw man that they're going with. It's obvious that he's beholden, and his political power is less than theirs. Maybe not his popularity among the average people of Ukraine, but his actual political power is less than his. And that's proven by his failure to enact the Steinmeier formula, which is what I talk about. As I mentioned earlier, it was this program to have independent elections in the Donbass region.
I think we have the video if you're ready.
Yeah, go ahead and play it. This guy actually hosts a show with Jon Stewart.
We can speak to Sergei Markov, a former MP with President Putin's United Russia Party. You're saying that the object of this exercise is to denazify Ukraine. You are, I'm sure, aware that the president of Ukraine is Jewish.
Zelensky not Nazis. Zelensky himself afraid of Nazis very well. He's Jewish.
Another fact Putin seems to be conveniently ignoring, that Zelensky is Jewish, and he says his grandfather fought against the Nazis for the Soviets.
Moscow police arrested hundreds of demonstrators calling for an end to a war that Putin said was to, quote, demilitarize and denazify Ukraine, even though President Volodymyr Zelensky is Jewish and his great uncles died in the Holocaust.
I've been impressed with Zelensky and how he has stood up, and for Putin to go out there and say we're going to denazify, and Zelensky is Jewish.
If Putin is to be believed, his intention is to demilitarize the country and denazify it, which is a ridiculous term.
His terminology, outrageous and obnoxious as it is, denazify, where you've got frankly a Jewish president of Ukraine, Mr. Zelensky. This guy is on his own kind of personal jihad to try to restore a greater Russia.
In explaining why he was going to invade, he said, you know what? I'm going to denazify Ukraine. I mean, take us inside the head of a spy trying to rationalize why he's invading.
He wants to win the narrative. Look, it's the height of hypocrisy to call the Ukrainian nation to denazify it. Their president is Jewish, after all.
He says that he's working to denazify the country. He's talking about Nazis in Ukraine right now. President Zelensky, as you know, he's Jewish.
It's patently absurd. There is really no merit. You pointed out that Vladimir Zelensky is Jewish. The Jewish community is embraced. It's central to the country, and there is nothing to this Nazi narrative, fascist narrative. It's fabricated as a pretext.
Yeah, even the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum here in Washington, they condemned Putin for uttering those kinds of words. Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, thanks so much for joining us.
Wasn't Vindman's whole thing that he wanted like the U.S. to keep giving lethal aid to neo-Nazis? Like, I'm pretty sure that was the whole thing. That was a story I skipped over at the time. But so, I mean, it's mainstream media is running cover for this guy. I call him SNLensky, Saturday Night Live, as a reference to that, because, there's video of him like playing the piano with his penis on national television.
Yeah, when you posted that, I was like, holy crap, like
and dancing in heels and like a crop top.
It's so weird. He's like the new he's like everybody's favorite liberal moms are having like an orgasm over seeing him in military uniform now, and it's kind of crazy. And they want Jeremy Renner or Tom Cruise to play him in a movie. I mean, this is what's happening right now. We're glorifying this guy, but more to your point, like in that video, they're saying that Putin is trying to lead a jihad, which is hilarious because it's like the opposite of
they're leading a jihad.
Yeah.
Well, and really quick, the pictures of him in military garb are not from this year. They're from like 2019 when he was meeting with troops. And this is a lot of what I talk about in my article. This is the crux of it, is this period of time in October 2019 when he was meeting with people on the front, Nazis on the front line of the war in Russia. And he went to a city called Zelot, where he met with Azov Battalion, and he totally embarrassed himself on camera because the thing is that he had told them that they have to leave, and they refused. So there's this video of him, and he says, "I'm the president of this country. I'm 41 years old. I'm not a loser. I told you I came to you and told you, remove the weapons. So that really embarrassed him. That really set off the far right. Andrei Belitsky, the leader of Azov, threatened to send thousands of troops there if Zelensky continued to press for their removal. Yevhen Karas, the leader of, around this time, he was meeting with Azov, and I have a picture of him meeting with Yevhen Karas, the leader of C-14, this neo-Nazi gang that has a deal with the Kiev government, the city government, to patrol its streets, and has carried out pogroms against Romani camps. I posted a video of this as well. I don't know if you played that one. But you can see these like right-wing thugs going into a Romani camp and just taking axes to everything and then cheering on themselves. It's really sick. But the leader of this gang that has done that, Zelensky's met with him and he consulted with them on the peace process. Like something that, in my opinion, like the president is supposed to, of any country, the president is supposed to like dictate national policy, right? Like it's not the military and it's not the paramilitaries, especially. So it shows his total weakness. But right now I have the leader of from 2014 to 16 or something like that. The longtime leader of Right Sector, Dmitry Yarosh, he's actually advising the Ukrainian military right now. So there's all kinds of, this is what I show in my article, and I encourage people to read it because it's hard to pull up everything off the top of my head, but there's all kinds of high level connections between these right-wing forces, these fascist forces, and the Zelensky government. And they've been there basically as long as the Zelensky government has. Really early in his administration, Zelensky's prime minister and his minister of veteran affairs attended a neo-Nazi concert organized by C-14. They're photographed there. In fact, his minister of veterans affairs promoted it on Facebook. So, and it's funny because Bellingcat, the U.S. government-funded regime change outlet, published all this. And now that so many other outlets are pushing back on the Nazi issue, they're totally silent because their own reporting contradicts everything that's being said right now by U.S. outlets.
Yeah, and I wanted to also ask you a little bit about how these elements have been playing out in the region for a while. I mean, there was the destruction of Russian cultural statues and communist statues. There was also the ticketing of those who spoke Russian, very, very just completely targeting Russians, Romani, as we saw in that video with the Romani camp, and this Slavic minorities. This is nothing that has been hidden by, like you said, by in general. In fact, you can Google Azov Battalion and you can Google C-14 and you can find all of these articles talking about that if you actually look for it. And I recommend using like DuckDuckGo. But like in Western media now, it's like the opposite, where they're attempting to pretend like this didn't happen and that it's still not happening, that it's, that this is still not going on. And I did you go, I don't remember if you went into any of the acts by these people, like how they were like pretty much acting like, I don't want to compare it to the Holocaust, but in terms of like the segregation aspect, right? Like the segregation aspect.
Well, beyond the Holocaust, there's, Eastern Europe has a long history of pogroms against Romanis, against Jews that predate the Holocaust significantly. So I feel like a lot of this stuff is in that tradition. I do like a lot of the stuff that I've been tweeting didn't make it into the article, so we could talk about some of that stuff, and I'd like to. But I do want to talk about the Hero of Ukraine award that Zelensky gave to Dmytro. Oh God, that's a hard name. Dmytro Kotsiubelo. I don't know. This guy's a commander with the right sector, which the right sector was it split, but it was about 130 fighters were incorporated officially into the Ukrainian military. They demanded that they be able to serve in the same company, and the Ukrainian government agreed to that. But I published photos of Zelensky honoring a commander from the right sector with the Hero of Ukraine Award. The Hero of Ukraine Award is really important. It's like the highest honor. And actually, the pro-West president before Yanukovych awarded posthumously this award to Stepan Bandera,
right,
who was the neo-Nazi collaborator responsible for the murder of 100,000 Jews, Polish people, Romani, and Soviets.
Right. That's why these people are Banderite fascists. Like they're
right.
Like, yeah, that's what it means. I don't think people sometimes understand like what that means. Like this.
The pro-West president of Ukraine before Yanukovych gave Bandera the Hero of Ukraine Award, the same award that Zelensky gave to the right sector guy. Yanukovych reversed that. You can find this in the media. He reversed that. And that was part of the reason why he was so hated by these neo-Nazi Banderites, is because he reversed this award to Bandera. And then, of course, after he was overthrown, that's when the Banderite forces really became so powerful and all across Ukraine. There's one article from the Forward, which is a Jewish outlet. Sometimes they're good, most of the time they're not. That says that like there's a renaming of a street or a stadium or what have you to after Nazi collaborators every week. There was that fake news that Russia bombed the Babin Yar site, which is where Stepan Bandera's organization of Ukrainian nationalists massacred 33,000 Jews, and I think close to 100,000 in total, including Soviet prisoners of war. There was Zelensky himself said that Russia bombed it, which wasn't true. They bombed a telecom tower nearby, and Israeli journalists went and visited the site, said there was no damage. But it's worth talking about because the Kiev city government, I think it was 2019 or 2018, renamed a main avenue in the north of Kiev that leads to Babin Yar after Stepan Bandera, the guy whose forces carried out this massacre. So, there were all these headlines about how Putin was disgracing Holocaust history with this bombing of the Babin Yar that never happened. And meanwhile, the street that leads to it was renamed after the guy who carried out the massacre there. Go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of, on that point, you had this tweet that we showed the video, but it was these Ukrainian state-backed neo-Nazis were like gloating about their influence on the days like before the war began or before this conflict began. It was dated February 5th, 2022. And it was Yevhen Karas of the neo-Nazi C-14 and how he was talking about how, they're a minor group, like they're only about 10%, but they're extremely powerful. And I just wanted you to touch a little bit on that because you do talk about that in your article too.
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing about that tweet, because I tweeted it before my article was published, it has 4,000 retweets, which is insane for me, having a relatively small account. But that same guy, Yevhen Karas, I have pictures of him meeting with Zelensky. So that's like the really sick part, right? Is this guy who's like openly neo-Nazi, openly genocidal. He talked in that video about breaking up Russia into 5 different states, about how how they, being Nazis, started a war that hasn't been seen in 60 years. Just meeting with the Jewish president and talking about Ukraine-Russia relations. More recently, he's been on YouTube and his Telegram a lot. It's funny, RT's banned on Telegram, but Yevhen Karas, the leader of C-14 and the National Corps, which is the offshoot of the Azov Battalion, are on Telegram still. So like you can't have official state media on Telegram, but apparently neo-Nazi paramilitary organizations are fine. But
he called it a gay, like he said that the Maidan Revolutionary of Dignity would have been a gay parade.
Yeah.
If not for the instrumental role of the neo-Nazis. Like,
yeah, and that's and I see so much like anger from LGBT communities targeted towards Vladimir Putin.
Right.
And so much support for Ukraine from them. These guys fucking hate gay people. They've attacked gay events in Mariupol, in Kharkiv, in Kiev, everywhere, all over the country. And if you go to another video I talk about at the end of my article of Yevhen Karas on like in a convoy or in a truck filled with fighters, basically going to the front line, and he spends most of the video talking about how to identify like Russians and like Russian, tanks, which one's Russian, which one's Ukrainian, etc., that kind of stuff. But like throughout the entire thing, he's using slurs for gay people. He's calling the Russians like all kinds of homophobic slurs. These people are really like, I mean, they're Nazis. Like that's, I mean, do Nazis like gay people? Not as far as I've known. So that's the really sick irony of it, is that the gay community has been weaponized in this confrontation, and is decidedly on the pro-Ukraine side when Ukraine is like, infested with these anti-gay Nazis. I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
No. You answered it. But also, I just wanted to talk about the fact that, when you compare the obsession with neo-Nazis, or not even neo-Nazis, quote unquote white supremacists, right, in the United States. And most of that is referred to Trump supporters, Proud Boys. I'm not minimizing the fact that some of the people specifically in the Proud Boy sector, which I have found to be majorly infested, and some of these groups are in fact, white supremacists or fascists or advocates of fascism in some form or another. That is a minority that has no power in terms of the government, right? But when we're talking about these band-right fascists, 10%, okay, there's 10% of them, but they hold a lot of power in government. To me, that it's interesting to see that sector of the left embracing, or just dismissing these neo-Nazis in Ukraine, but completely hyper-focusing on, oh my God, there was one Nazi flag at the trucker protests. Right. So they're all fascists and petty bourgeois and right-wingers, and we need to cancel them. And it's okay to seize their assets because we fight fascists, right? I'm an anti-fascist. I'm a member of Antifa. I'm this or that. I bring this up a lot because it's an issue to me, like the hypocrisy that we're seeing. And I don't know if it's because some of these people are just ignorant on the subject, or because some of these people are just, willfully doing this.
Yeah, I tend to think a lot of it's ignorance, because if you look at some of the indictments of neo-Nazis in the United States, I know that in Charlottesville, there were people that trained with the Azov Battalion fighting on the side of the neo-Nazis. Yeah. I was in Charlottesville. I saw all the violence. I saw Heather Heyer get murdered. I saw the car ram through, a peaceful march and send bodies flying through the air. A lot of these people that have been in the news, and I've written about this in the past. I didn't include this in my article. Maybe I'll talk more about this again in the future. But it wasn't just Charlottesville. I know that a lot of the neo-Nazis that were being indicted over the past years for violent acts were trained by Azov Battalion. And to the point that Yevhen Karas, the C-14 leader, made in the video when he was talking about the Maidan coup, that it was 10% or maybe even less, 8% is what he said, that were neo-Nazis. I don't think that number is still so low. Because after the coup, there was like a renaissance of neo-Nazism in Ukraine. I mean, you had these huge marches that were torchlit, going through the streets of Kiev. You have neo-Nazi summer camps for children. You have neo-Nazis in key positions of government. Andrei Parubi, who was the speaker from like 2014 to 2019 or something of the Ukrainian parliament, very important political figure, neo-Nazi. So you had this flourishing, and I don't think it's the case anymore that it's just 8% neo-Nazis. I think it's much higher than that, especially in the West, cities like Lviv, where ultra-nationalist parties like Svoboda are much more dominant. And I mean, look, I want to point out that in the 2019 presidential election, the neo-Nazi parties got together. So it was Right Sector, it was Yarosh, it was Svoboda, it was Azov, and they had a unity ticket, and they only got 2.15% of the vote. So it's not very high. In the 2020 local elections, the right-wing factions did much better, but on the national level, like, the neo-Nazis aren't popular. But I mean, again, they have this outsized influence, and as I show in my article, have steered Zelensky's agenda. We can go ahead and play that PBS clip if you want.
Yeah, let's go ahead and play it because it goes.
I lost my thought.
No, you're great. It's just, there's a lot in your article, so we're pretty much talking about it all. But I just did want to play this PBS NewsHour because this is like the height of ridiculousness that we're in. So they interviewed this neo-Nazi, and they say in their tweet, when Russian troops came into the office of the mayor of Konotop, Ukraine, he escorted them out and made sure they drove away. We are ready to fight till the end, till the victorious end, to defeat these Russian cockroaches. They literally wrote Russian cockroaches. So they're like, oh, we're, non-biased media. We're trying to show the other side, like, oh, it's okay. There are good people on both sides, sort of thing happening. So let's play the video and then we'll discuss too.
Artem, can you tell us what happened when Russian troops came into your office?
They were demanding I recognize their authority and allow them to patrol the streets, de-arm those who have weapons, and detain those who resist. In the end, I told them, just as Ukrainian soldiers told a Russian warship, go f*** yourself.
The ejected Russians walked out holding grenades in their hands. Semenichin actually escorted them and made sure they drove away.
And do you fear that they'll come back and either occupy or try and destroy the city?
Yes, of course we are concerned, and this concern is not groundless. There's a big unit near our town, and using the weapons they have, they could destroy our town. But we are not afraid. We are ready to fight till the end, till the victorious end, to defeat these Russian cockroaches.
After the Russians left, he rallied his troops, civilians, ready to resist.
All of our cities are like this. All of our Ukraine is like this. We have weapons in our hands, we have armed up, and we are ready to kill occupiers. And thanks to the United States of America for supporting Ukraine with weapons. My weapon is American, and I think the occupiers will be pleased that we're killing them with American weapons.
Wow.
They're like, and I think, I don't know if you saw, but it's a blurred image, the blurred portrait.
Yeah, they blurred Stepan Bandera, right?
Yeah.
So did you see the article? I don't know if the viewers can read this, but this article, it went to my home screen, but the article is from 2015. Local Jews in shock after Ukrainian city of Konotop elects neo-Nazi mayor, from the Jerusalem Post. This is the mayor. That's the guy. And you have now PBS just totally glossing over this fact. I don't know where Konotop is.
Yeah, I don't either. But it's just
because go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, the really important thing to understand about Ukraine is like, okay, so Konotop is actually like to the east of Kiev.
Okay.
But remember how there was that CIA analysis that you pulled up earlier that said that the country could be split in half? So in the West, in Lviv and in other cities in the West, neo-Nazism is like a lot bigger, right? Because in the East, you have a lot of Russian-speaking people, Russian ethnics. In Kiev, of course, it's like a lot more liberal. But in the West, it's like way more neo-Nazi. So while Kharkiv and Mariupol are kind of dominated by neo-Nazis, they're kind of the outliers, and they're especially not reflective of the population. But in the West, it culturally, neo-Nazism and ultranationalism which are kind of like the same thing in Ukraine, because like, well, it's a long history, but if you hear the term ultranationalist Ukrainians, it's neo-Nazi. That, if it was split, in half, the country, it would be neo-Nazis on one side and Russians, and let's not forget that the government of Donbass is openly communist on the eastern side. So that's really what they're talking about. And while this mayor of Konotop is in the east, I tend to think that's more of an outlier because it's more multicultural.
Yeah, and I think that's a point that nobody's understanding here. First of all, the fact that so many people still think that Russia is communist is just an indication
58% or something like that.
Yeah, like an indication of just like how ignorant people are. It's funny because on the right, I get called like, oh, you just like Putin because you're a commie and you're supporting Putin isn't a communist. Putin is definitely not a communist. And then on the left, it's like Putin is Hitler. Inshallah.
Yeah.
But Putin is Hitler is the other like element, like on the left, like, oh, he's Hitler, he's waging his war. And they I think you saw probably that Wall Street or what was it Wall Street Journal, or was it, I forget which outlet it was. I think it was Wall Street Journal, where they had him as Genghis Khan. Like,
yeah, he's a neo-Nazi Stalinist Genghis Khanite.
Yeah, I mean, what? But like, yeah,
it makes no sense.
Yeah. So it's just like this portrayal of him as every worst thing, but it doesn't make sense because it's just not consistent. But I forgot where I was going with that. I just lost my train of thought. There was a point that I was trying to make, just like is there anything else in your article that you wanted to highlight? Because I have another video of basically how we've talked about this before, how like the Ukrainian army, what that's basically left in Mariupol, is essentially mostly made up of these neo-Nazis. Yeah. Particularly the Azov. And they were telling this girl in the video, and people can't understand it, so you can just play it and we'll talk over it. But they're telling this girl that the evacuation is canceled and that she should be thankful that she's not shot. And if you guys go to the actual video, there's a longer version of the video that you can watch that goes over the whole thing. But this just shows that that a lot of these people, these Ukrainian people, are purposely kept there by these factions to make it look like Russians are killing civilians, to try to like find ways to blame Russia for civilian deaths, because that's all you hear. Oh, Putin is, look at all these people that, how dare you?
Where's the footage?
Support Putin, blah, blah, blah.
Where's the video?
I've seen
of Putin massacring civilians.
Yeah.
The mainstream media is deprived of convincing footage to show on this conflict. I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either.
Because Putin and the Russian military are taking serious measures to prevent it. they want to destroy military infrastructure and neo-Nazi infrastructure. They don't want to look. It doesn't benefit Putin to have every Ukrainian, everyone in a country that shares a massive border with his, hate him, right? How does that benefit Russia to have this history of like slaughter on his doorstep? No, it doesn't. So they're taking important, really careful steps to not, and they're monitoring, these right-wing channels too. As I talk about in my article, Azov said that they'd be taking over that administrative building in Kharkiv. Next day, it's hit by a Russian airstrike. But one thing I'd like to point to in my article is that Azov, has not been allowing people to flee Mariupol. There's footage that seems to show them pulling people out of their car at gunpoint. There's another video that's really sick, and I, watch at your own discretion. I certainly did not enjoy the experience of a husband and wife fleeing Mariupol and being shot at, and there's dead bodies strewn on the side of the road of people killed apparently by Azov, and the guy who filmed it, his wife is killed. He made it, but it's really sick. And this is the thing. It's like the Nazis don't care about civilians, right? They want them as human shields. Even Yevhen Kata said, if we die, it's fine because we're fighting a holy war. So they don't care about civilians. They're killing them if they try to flee. They want them there. They don't want these humanitarian corridors that Russia is setting up because, if the civilians die, then they can blame Russia.
Exactly.
It's really sick. It's really sick.
Exactly.